This episode of the School of Laughs podcast is brought to you by Patreon supporter Kevin Hardy. If you'd like to support the podcast through a small monthly donation, please check out schooloflaughs.com/PATREON for more information. It's just one small charge to your credit card each month, and that keeps the podcast alive for another month. Hey, I appreciate you guys supporting the podcast. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the School of Laughs podcast, brought to you by schooloflaughs.com. Whether you're an aspiring comedian, a part-time pro, or a speaker who wants to become funnier, this is the podcast for you. We'll break down tools, tips, and techniques to help you get bigger, better, and more bookable. And now, here's the show.
Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us again today. My name is Rick Roberts, and occasionally I get to have an extra fun podcast like today where I get to call up one of my old buddies who I haven't seen in a while and pick his brain, see what he's up to, and share him with you. And this week I'm talking to Greg Warren. Greg is a very, very, very funny guy who I met, I can't even tell you how many years ago, 15 plus years ago in Cincinnati. At the time, he was working at Proctor & Gamble when he first started comedy. He was doing some open mics, some MCing at the time, and has since gone on to appear on Late Night with Seth Myers, The Late Late Show, Comedy Central Presents. He's been on a couple different CDs he's put out, Running Out of Time, and Star Wonder. Got his new CD out now that's exclusive to SiriusXM Laugh USA. It's a 100% clean comedy CD, and they're promoting it all the month of November. So if you're a SiriusXM listener, I thought this would be timely for you. You'll probably be listening to Greg a lot on SiriusXM as you travel around, and now you'll know a little bit more about him. Greg's a very funny guy. We talk about a lot of different things, from him selling Pringles to different groups when he was working for Procter & Gamble. We talk about some common comedy buddies that we had throughout the years and some advice they gave to him. And we'll talk about how he approaches putting together a set for a late night talk show, something you might be interested in for sure, and how he goes about doing it. Some of it's a little counterintuitive to the way you do a normal comedy show, and it's pretty interesting to hear his take on that. We talk about his mockumentary that he put out this past couple of months ago here on wrestling, and it's called Stall Camp. I'll link to that. All kinds of great stuff in this interview with Greg, one of my best buddies in comedy back in the day, and still a good buddy, and glad we could catch up. Real quickly, if you want to take a drive to Philadelphia anytime soon and catch me doing comedy, this is a good time to do it. On the 12th and 13th, I'll be in the Philadelphia area, and I'd love to see you come out and talk to you after the show. On the 12th, I'll be in Brookhaven, Pennsylvania at Faith Community Church, along with Al Smith, Dan Culp, and Gordon Douglas. And that show, you can find out more about tickets by going to, I guess you pick up the phone, 610-872-2229. You can call that number, or email gordoncomedy@comcast.net and ask him about tickets. On the 13th, I will be at New Life Glenside Church. That's in Glenside, Pennsylvania, 7 o'clock showtime there. That is a free show. If you don't want to cough up some money to help out a cause like we're doing on Saturday the 12th, as we're doing for Pregnancy Center on that night, Sunday, we're just doing comedy. And it's me and a bunch of my Christian Comedy Association buddies, including Ron DeCory, Jeanette Kronk. We got Al Smith, Dan Culp, Cornbread the comic, Ross Bennett, who you've seen on Letterman, amongst many other shows, Sandy Joy, and again, Gordon Douglas on that night as well. 2 nights, different places, right there in the Philadelphia area. I'd love to catch you. Think about that. All right, it's coming up. Love to see you. Right now, though, let's get to my interview with my good buddy, Greg Warren. Well, I'm here with Greg Warren. How's it going?
Hey, Rick. Good to talk to you, man.
A long time since I saw you last, so I thought it was time to check in.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think I think the last time I saw you, you were coming through Nashville, and you did a guest set during one of my School of Laughs graduation shows. Is that it?
Yeah, that was it, man. Yeah.
And you kind of, I brought you on stage under a fake alias so you could try a couple of jokes.
That's right. I think I borrowed your glasses or something. And
yeah. You borrowed my glasses. And I think I don't know how long you'd been doing it, but you were working on that joke about how Muslim women or Middle Eastern women don't look guys in the eyes or something like that.
Yeah.
And then that ended up being on Last Comic Standing, didn't it?
Yeah, I did that in a couple TV shows, actually, man. That joke served me well. That was one of those jokes where it's like, I think I did it on Twitter sometimes like this shorter stuff, I'll just try it on Twitter. And it was like, didn't get much of a response at all. And I was talking to my friend, I'm like, this is funny. I know this is funny, you know? And it got cut from one TV set. They said it was too sensitive or whatever, which I don't agree with. And then they let me do it on a couple others. So
Yeah, man, it's got to be frustrating when you got a joke that is not, and they're afraid that it might be.
Yeah, I know it's not. It's offensive, and in fact, they're the ones that are being offensive because it's like you should be able to say the word Muslim if you're not saying something derogatory about Muslims. But by saying, "Oh, we don't even want to say the word," then you're sort of like prejudiced against them,
Yeah, it's not like it's 100% on board, and they're just and if they listen to the joke, you're making fun of yourself only.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's usually most of my jokes, anyways. Yeah, I'm usually the victim.
Yeah, which it tends to work out good. You can put yourself in a million different spots, and you do that really well. And audiences have no reason not to laugh if you're only making fun of yourself. Then the whole game's open after that.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of try to move it around, but yeah, I guess just pure comedy taste. Like, I don't know if I really want to hear anybody that doesn't have some hint of self-deprecation. I don't know if I want to hear anybody talk if they don't have some sense of humor about themselves or put themselves down a little bit or realize something about themselves that not flattering. I don't know. I get changed a little bit.
Well, I'm like that too. Like as soon as a comic hits the stage, I'm trying to figure out what they're going to say about themselves. If I can see something physical or obvious, and then as soon as they hit me with something I wasn't expecting, that's 10 times better.
Yeah.
Then after that, they've got me. Like, I'm with you, buddy. I've got problems too.
Yeah.
Now, I got to go back. The first time I bumped into you, I think, I'm not sure if I was working at Dayton Jokers or if I was at Go Bananas, but I think that was the first time we bumped into each other. And it's one of those, I think it was Go Bananas, because on Saturday or Sunday afternoon, everybody kind of hung out at the club, all the comedians in town and open micers, and just did some writing and workshopping some jokes. You remember those days?
I do, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. We're going back quite a ways, buddy.
Well, that was before you were full-time. All the time I had people ask me, like, when should you go full-time if you got a good job? And I always think back to you and a couple other guys, especially from that area, worked at PP and Proctor and Gamble, right?
Yeah.
And
you
had
was there for 10 years. Yeah.
And you had that good job and you had that, security, but you were pretty specific about how you were going to go about it. You were going to make sure you had some money in the bank, a car that was paid off, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, a few things. I also wanted to get good. I think I was a little bit of a slow starter. But I just wanted to get where I felt like I was pretty good. And then I was trying to find a way for them to transfer me to New York or LA, and that just didn't happen. And at one point I was just like, you know what, I'm getting a little bit older here. If I'm going to do this, I just need to do it. So I cut the strings. But I had some money in the bank, and I had a car, and I had all that stuff. So, I probably, I don't know how I would, I maybe would have done it differently, but I definitely had more perspective by the time I quit my day job. I had more to write about.
And I think too that you're pretty much, got your foot in the door featuring everywhere, so you didn't have to hit the road as an MC. I'm sure you did some here and there just to pick up some weeks.
Yeah. By the time I left, man, when I started, I had about 45 weeks that year on the road as a feature act. So it was a fun year. It was a really fun year.
Yeah, nothing like those feature days where you can kind of no real pressure and all the fun.
Yeah, all the fun, no pressure. And I was coming off of like a day job for 10 years. So.
And you were working in Cincinnati, but you weren't from there. You're from Missouri, is that right?
Yeah, St. Louis. Yeah. I got a job with Procter and Gamble out of college. It's funny, how like you have this whole life, everybody has like a block of experiences. I had that whole experience of like working for Procter and Gamble for 10 years. And it's my act tends to be very biographical, and it's one of the few like big portions of my life that I just have not written about. And the last 6 months, I've been really trying to mine that experience for jokes. It's fairly laborious, but I'm starting to find something.
Like going back to being in the office kind of stuff.
Yeah, just in being in sales, just really sort of trying to, I'm trying to just write a lot of stuff about being in sales, and just that time of your life. It was. I go back to the beginning. Like I was I wrestled when I was in college, and that's kind of like what I focused on for most of my college. I mean, I got okay grades, but it was because like I didn't want to get yelled at by my dad or whatever. So I get done with college, and I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. And I had to move in with my parents, and I didn't have a job, and I had to take a job as a busboy at Denny's. And it was like a really kind of rough beginning, because I got, that thing when you're working like that busboy at Denny's job, you're like, man, I know this is temporary, but there's that little thing in the back of your mind that's like, maybe this isn't temporary. Maybe this is just what I do. Like I work at Denny's and I live in my parents' basement. Like maybe this is where it's heading. So yeah, I wound up getting an interview. A buddy of mine worked at P&G, and I had to go through a bunch of tests and interviews and stuff, and I got offered a job there. And it was like, and I was really proud to have the job, because it was a good job. It paid, I got a company car, I got good money, but nobody ever understands your sales job. Like I remember the day I got the job, I went to some bar and I'm talking to some girl, and like she's like, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "I got a really good job." She's like, "What?" I'm like, I'm selling Pringles." She's like door to door? Yeah, door to door. Knock on people's doors.
That's awesome, man. And to have a company car in your 20s and a steady job, all the Pringles you can eat.
All the Pringles, all the Duncan Hines. That was like, I think how I finally got good was the Duncan Hines part of it, because we would have like new items, and I would just bake all these cakes and bring them to the buyer and just give them to all the secretaries. And then they would be like, "These are great." They couldn't believe, because I was a boy, like, "You made these by yourself?" I'm like, yeah. And then like, "Richard, you should put these in. He made these, And I got baked all the time. I literally got into baking like as a 22-year-old college. I was the only like 22-year-old single male who had a really nice set of muffin tins. I remember I lived with these guys that I knew from college, down in Houston, Texas is where my first sales territory. And we all lived in, there was like a college guy's apartment, and "Hey Warren, you want to go out?" I'm like, "No, Toby, I've got muffins in the oven. I can't go out." Okay?
Can you not jump around? You're going to make them drop.
Yeah. Whatever, Betty Crocker. It's not Betty Crocker. It's Duncan Hines, Toby. Betty Crocker's my competitor.
That's too funny, man. Gosh, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, I'm starting to find it. It's like that. It's weird though, because a lot of it's the trick, man. You got to take these events or these parts of your life that are so close to you, and they're always the hardest things to write about. Like for me, wrestling was the hardest thing for me to write about. It just took me forever to try to get it. And you think, well, that just, since it's so hard to write about, maybe it's just not the thing that I should be writing about. And that it's counterintuitive. It's actually, that does mean you should write about it, but it's going to take a little bit more work. And once you do get to it, it's going to be the best material you have.
That's actually kind of what I needed to hear. Cause I've got, I grew up tobacco farms and horse farms, and I do a lot of like ag events, and I don't have really any stories from those days that I'd tell, because I just figure it was just work, so why bring up work? But I'd need to be digging into that stuff.
Man, I remember you telling me stories that were great. Didn't you guys wreck Kentucky basketball coach car or something like that?
Yeah, when I worked on the thoroughbred farm for Dan Issel, who played for the Nuggets and played for the Kentucky Wildcats, he had a basketball hoop in his backyard that his daughter, who was like 6 foot something, would shoot hoops on. And one Friday we go around to each of the houses and the barns on the property and get the big garbage cans rolled up in the truck. And Dwayne, the guy I worked with, we'd always play jokes on each other. And he had taken some bungee cords when I got out to get the trash can, and he bungee corded. He turned the steering wheel as far as we go and then locked it in with this bungee cord, because he knew I would get in there and just hit the reverse. And as soon as I did, I plowed right into the basketball goal and knocked it back about, it was like at a 45-degree angle. And he's like, "Yeah, we got to get out of here." And then we came back to work Monday, and everybody's really quiet, and they're just looking at me and Dwayne. And I don't know which one of us broke the ice. We're like, "What's up?" And they're like, "Well, we had to let go of the night watchman. He'd been drinking and bumped into Dan Issel's basketball goal."
That's great. You punks got some poor guy fired.
More than one, I think.
Oh man, that's yeah. I think that's the thing, man. You got to, and I think you start on the outer edges of it because for me with like wrestling, like it's like, well, what? It's such a part of you. It's hard to step out of it and look at what's funny about it. Mm-hmm. Or sales, 10 years at Procter & Gamble, like there's nothing funny about it. So it's sort of like trying to find like the center or the heart of the meaning of what's funny of it. Start on the periphery and just be like, what's funny about find the littlest tangent that's funny and work your way back into the premise, I think.
Right. And I would think for you with the Procter & Gamble stuff, now that I'm an older guy, like, 40, whatever, to see a 20-year-old salesman trying to sell anything to somebody that's older than them, that's just an uphill battle in the first place.
So, man, you hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, I'm like stuttering around. I remember one of these guys they gave me like the bad accounts. That's like a time-honored tradition in sales. Yeah. Like when they never they never give the new guy the good accounts. They always give you the bad accounts. And they try to pretend like this is a really great account, Greg. You're gonna then why are you giddy right now? I can tell you're so happy to get rid of this account. I got like the grocery stores down in Texas, like that were in the bad neighborhoods, that were like the all the ones that were spelled incorrectly, like Sak-n-Sav, SAK-N-SAV. Neither Sack nor Save nor and was spelled correctly. Man, I remember going in. There's this one guy, George Meyer. He was my buyer, and I was so young. I was like 3 weeks on the job, and he did not like our company, like Procter & Gamble at all. Like he just didn't like us. I mean, and I'm going in there, and I'm like, hey, I'm with Procter & Gamble. He's like, Procter & Gamble, you guys are in bed with Walmart. I'm like, I don't know Walmart. I don't know. I've just started. I know Denny's, and I don't think I was in bed with them. But I had noticed like we had like these funds that you use to promote your products. It's a lot of money, and you kind of give them to the retailer to do different things with your products. And I had gotten the books, and I'm like a 22-year-old kid, and I'm looking through the books, and I'm like, the guy before me, he messed the money up. Like he's giving this guy way too much money. He's already spent half of this year's fund, and it's like January 20th. Wow. So so I had to go in there as this 22-year-old kid and this like kind of mob-looking guy, George at Sak-n-Sav, and be like, hey, George, we can't give you this deal anymore. And I'm sure I sounded like, I've been looking at the numbers. I just got, I just seemed like some punk to him, and I took his money away.
He was already looking for his next deal from Punkin Hines instead of Duncan Hines. He's like, that'll fit better with my misspelled store.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, you've done a good job of digging into a lot of your experiences. I think the people that know you right off the bat probably know you from the Flute Man bit. Would you say that was the bit that kind of got you going a little bit faster? Yeah. And it seemed like from, maybe you had a bunch of stories and characters before that, but it seemed like from that point on, it kind of, every time I saw you, you just had another great bit where you're pulling your coach into the bit, and he's got this whistle thing going on, or you're talking about the bit I heard recently with the husband and wife real estate team. Like you're going into different characters and putting the comedy in different places besides just you talking about a current event. And I love the stories you tell. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of digging in and finding the angles to get those things out?
I tried a lot of different things early on, and I think I was like, there's a guy named Ron Morey. Do you remember Ron?
One of my favorite guys ever.
Yeah, he's just one of the best comics I've ever seen. And one of the best human beings. But I remember I was living in Houston, and I was struggling, just like every open micer. I was maybe hosting a little bit, and I was okay. And then I would be out in the lobby hanging out at the bar at the Houston Laugh Stop with Ron, and we'd be like just doing characters and goofing around. And he's like, why aren't you doing this? Like, this is how you make your friends laugh. You should probably do some version of that. In fact, I still remember it. Remember that guy, Freddie DeMarco?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Fred's a good friend of mine. He's this comedy club owner in Columbia, and I was doing an impression of Freddie. We would just do that for hours about different stuff, and Ron's like, you got to do more of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, characters kind of was a way for me in. But I don't know. I try to write them fairly tightly. Like, you know, like usually I just found this where it's like a dialogue between me and the character. Usually I'm the victim, but it's not like I go into a character and stay in it for, 10 minutes or 20 minutes like Martin Short or something. It's like a dialogue between me and the character.
Yeah, and Ron was great at those characters too. I remember he used to put on overalls and a hat. Did you ever work with him when he emceed his own show?
Yeah, that was Ed Peachman was that guy. Yeah, coveralls. Yeah.
Ed Peachman. Yeah, I worked with him in Wichita one week, and I was like looking around for the MC, and he's like, "Oh, I'll be taking care of that." I'm like, "All right." So the headliner was asking me for my middle introduction. I couldn't figure it out, and then all of a sudden he shows up in his coveralls. Yeah, I was out there, fell asleep last night underneath the car.
Yeah. And people didn't realize that they were the same guy.
No, a lot of times they didn't. I think in that week in Wichita, maybe 2 people came up after the show and was like, "Was that you up front?"
Yeah.
But I thought, what a great idea. And then maybe he was even getting 2 checks. I don't even know how he may have been getting the MC check.
It could be.
Man, that is too good. Well, you've done a lot of TV, which is always cool to catch you on the different shows. The Last Comic Standing, you made it fairly far in that last episode. You want to tell me a little bit about that process? And
I've kind of learned how to do a late night TV set, and it's a little counterintuitive. Like, you can't do a lot of characters. If you do, they have to be really, really tight. It took me a long time to sort of retrofit my style into what works on a late night TV set.
So how do you go about it? Like, if I said you got 6 minutes tomorrow or 5 minutes, how the wheels start turning?
If they said, okay, you got to get a tape to Fallon tomorrow night or something, I would go through, like, I'm pretty ridiculous. I have some of the old business stuff shows up in my process, but I usually put it on a spreadsheet. So I just look on my spread. I got every one of my jokes on a spreadsheet, and I kind of would say, okay, how much? Actually, I'd go through like a recent headline set, and I just would listen to it, and I'd go through and write down, here's the bit on a spreadsheet, and here's how long the bit is. And then I sort of just go by process of elimination, being like, okay, let's get rid of everything that's too long. Let's get everything that doesn't really, fit the tenor of the show. And then, you get it. Let's get rid of everything that I've ever done on TV before. And then you get to like where I'm at right now, where I'm kind of looking at maybe what my next TV set, and it's about 12 minutes. And I'm like, okay, like what would be a good opening joke? And maybe I could pull a portion of this joke. Do they fit together? They don't always have to fit together. Like, you don't always have to have everything about the same topic. But if you don't, can you kind of squeeze it in there? And I'm kind of in the process right now, like looking at it's been a while since I've done a late night set. I got about 12 minutes, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I know what my first 2 jokes would be on the tape. I kind of know 2 other jokes that loosely fit in there. And then there's this ending joke that's a little bit longer and a little bit less traditional for a late night set. That I'm like, you know what? I'm to the point where I'm like, what? So I don't get it. I'm going to send it just because I like the joke. It's like, it's kind of almost like a Flute Man-ish type thing where it's, when I lived in New York, I was on the train one day, and there was this guy or this lady just gets on the train, and she starts singing, just singing, just all I want for Christmas is a fish sandwich. All I want for Christmas is a fish sandwich. All I want, and I'm like, oh God, you can't be doing that in public. Guess what song has been stuck in my head for the last 6 months? I can't get that. That woman should not be homeless. She's a hit maker. She may be one of the greatest lyricists of our time. Like, I've heard 11 Taylor Swift songs. I don't know the words. I know all the words to Fish Sandwich. And guess what? Nobody's wondering what to get her for Christmas. That one woman that rides a train. I was going to get, dude, she wants a fish sandwich. listen to the lyrics. You're getting caught up in the beat. So it's like, it's one of those things where now like people leave the show and they're like, they remember it. So that does not necessarily fit a late night set, but I kind of want to force it in. I want to see if I can make it work.
Yeah, I like it. Well, it's perfect for any of the big cities where people are taking the subway or the train or anything like that. They've seen those people, and if you haven't, you know those kinds of people.
Everybody gets it. It's just, the rhythm is different on a late night set, man. It's very different because it's like there's not a lot of room for sort of tags.
I've noticed that, and I was going to ask you about that. It seems like they're big on the premise and the punchline, and then move on.
Yeah, because the audience tends to clap a lot on those shows. So, like, once they start clapping, you're kind of done with that joke, whether you think you are or you're not. So on something like the fish sandwich, it's like there's no real way to show them, okay, here's where the joke ends right here. So you're breaking the rules of late night TV, but every now and then I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to break it.
Right.
I'm not going to let them completely dictate to me how my act goes, So the last time I did it, it was probably the best time I did it. It was on Seth Myers. And I did have a lot of those jokes that sort of were simple and landed pretty quickly. So yeah, my style is, I've never been a guy that, I have a few, but I've never been a guy that just churns out one-liners or, 10, 15-second jokes. It's not my style, but I've tried to figure out a way how can I sort of retrofit what I do into that style.
Yeah, it's always a little challenging, but you seem to make it work pretty well. And it seems, man, when was it? Within the past year, I saw you on one of the shows, and Billy Gardell was guest host. Yeah, that was fun, man. That was really fun. Yeah, and you guys were talking about he was just reading the parts from Mike and Molly. Were you guys working together or something in a condo that week, or you were helping him with the script?
I was living in St. Louis, and Billy was in town doing the Funny Bone, and I went out to watch him, and he was telling me like, yeah, I got a pretty big audition when I get back, and I was like, yeah, he was like, tell me about it. It's a Chuck Lorre show, and I'm like, wow, and he goes, yeah, it's like Monday, and I go, Billy, I'm no seasoned actor, but I took a lot of classes, in LA, and I can act a little. I go, you want me to read with you? And he was like, yeah, man. So like I went over to his hotel room and we read the sides for Mike and Molly pilot. And, obviously things worked out.
Things worked out really good. And I was curious, when he got the chance to guest host, did he request you to be on the show, or was it just pure luck that you guys were together?
He requested that I did not do the show. No, he definitely requested me. It was really nice of him, man. It was really cool. Incidentally, I was never once asked to read for that Molly part, and I'm a little offended by that because some of the work that I did with Billy that day, I could at least been given a shot.
Yeah.
She's great. Melissa McCarthy's great and all, but I was doing a pretty nice job.
Yeah, no, I think you guys should do at least a buddy movie together, you and Billy.
Yeah. No, yeah, that was really cool. When I did the thing with Billy, it's fun because, usually you're trying to get on the show, but this time like they kind of asked me, so it's more fun, and it was really loose. I had just done Seth Myers, I was done Seth Myers a month before, so I was kind of like loose. Usually it's a year or two in between any late night appearance, so I was like just done it, and I was like, oh, and that went well, so I'm like I was kind of playing with the house money, and I was like I'm gonna take some chances on this show. And then it was when they were in between Ferguson and Corden, so they didn't really care that much. And I was like, they go, just do however long you want to do. Basically, I was like, I couldn't have done 10 minutes, but they're like, if it's 4.5, fine. If it's 5.5, that's fine too. Who cares?
Right. That's cool, man.
I did do on that one. I did a bit I did this assistant coach bit that, was more of a like minute and 30 long character piece that I would not normally do.
Yeah, and that is a great bit. In fact, makes me think about those videos you had put out over the years, and the assistant coach who's trying to do everything by the book.
Oh yeah, that guy, yeah.
That is.
Gosh, we need to get those permission slips on for the banquet.
That's some great stuff. Have you put out any videos recently? I know they're pretty intense to put together, and they take some time and money.
I am probably one of the foremost authorities on wasting money on internet videos that don't. That's probably how I'll be remembered the most in this business. But no, I did this year. I did a short film, like a 15-minute mockumentary about wrestling, and it's targeted towards kids that wrestle or wrestling fans, amateur wrestling, not professional wrestling. But there's this website called Flow Wrestling that's like their ESPN. So a lot of people, it gets a lot of traffic, and I did it for them, and it was great, man. It's one of the funnest things I've ever done. I love doing that stuff. So it's called Stall Camp, and I think the business, the work and the job is you got to do stand-up comedy. You got to write jokes. You got to perform jokes. But I like to have 2 or 3 little side projects every year where you're trying to do something different,
Yeah, kind of work some different muscles and get those talents worked up a little bit.
And you're collaborating. I mean, I really, it's such a solitary business sometimes with stand-up. I really enjoy collaborating with other people.
That's cool. Are there any guys you bump into on the road that you throw some ideas out and write with, or are you pretty solitary when it comes to cranking out your own material? Man,
it's a lot less than it used to be. I think because now I sort of know what is funny for me. But I think like Mark Gross, I talk to pretty much every time I have a new joke, I call Mark Gross. He's really good. Mark.
Oh, Mark's great, and he's done very well.
Yeah, he's a writer. Right now he's writing on that new Matt LeBlanc show, which he wrote on Mike and Molly, and he wrote on Rodney Carrington's show and Gary Unmarried, and great comic, man, and one of my best friends. So I probably every bit that I've ever done, on a CD is at some point I've run it by Mark Gross, Sometimes just because I'm like, hey man, you got to hear this. I think this is pretty funny. But yeah, and he's really good. There's a few other people, but not as much as in the old days,
Yeah, I think in the old days you're kind of throwing it out for validation, and then now you kind of know it's in your wheelhouse, but you might want to share it once you got it down.
Yeah, and then there's something like my brother's one of the funniest guys I know, but I never tell him anything because he doesn't laugh, man. And so, as much as you think that you know what you're doing, it's like you don't want to lose confidence in a bit. So be careful who you share it with.
That's right. Yeah. Sometimes you run it by that guy, and if they don't laugh, you're like, perfect. It's a killer.
Yeah. I mean, I think you told me that some young comics listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is something that I had a manager tell me years and years ago, and it really sort of changed everything. And it seems so simple, but really, really trust your instincts when it comes to a premise. Like, really, you got to get to this point where, like, if you think that it's funny, it's funny. End of story. It's funny. Now, it may not be getting laughs, and that just means you're not letting them see what's in your head. First you got to get it straight in your head and get the, sort of crystallize the idea, and then you have to explain it. So you may not have crystallized the idea yet, and you may not have explained it correctly, but that does not mean that it's not a good idea and it's not funny. And once I sort of got there, that changed a lot. I'm like, no, this is because you thought of this thing, it's valid,
Right.
Yeah, I just think it's really important because you're like, man, I thought this thing was funny and nobody's laughing. Yeah, it is funny. You're just not telling it right. And you may not be able to tell it right for 8 years. And you may get it right next week, but it's funny. Trust me, it's funny.
Yeah, it's true, man. That's the most frustrating thing sometimes when you get the really great idea and no ability on stage to tell it, and then you write those things down so you don't lose them, and as you get better, you can come back, pick them up, and they're ready to go.
Those things are gold too, man. I mean, there's a few times in my life when I've been at man, I have no more material, I have nothing funny, I'm generating nothing. Let's go back and see if there's anything I can pick up, And a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm a way better comedian now. I can tell that idea. That's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, it just takes a little time to get skilled at the other half of things.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So what's on your horizon? Anything you're working on or excited about these days?
I recorded a exclusive CD for SiriusXM for their Clean channel, Laugh USA channel, which I know you get played on a ton. And I recorded that for them, and they're featuring it all month long. Yeah, it starts today actually. So.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah.
I'll have to tune in a little bit more. Keep it on the background and wait for your name to pop up.
Yeah. So we're doing that, and then I don't know. Eventually, I'd like to have something, some block of material about this Procter & Gamble stuff, which I'm starting to find the seams. So it's I'd like to do, maybe even do like a one-man show about that, or maybe it's like a corporate show, or maybe it's just a big part of the stand-up act. I don't know.
Well, it could definitely be a corporate, program, I guess is what we call them in the
business. That's kind of what I sort of started writing it for, because I would do a corporate show. Just, I don't really solicit a lot of corporate work, but sometimes they'll find me, or I'll be at the club and be like, hey, can you do this thing tomorrow? So I would be doing my regular act, and I'll be like, what do you guys do? They're like, we're in sales. And I'd be like, oh, I was in sales. And I'd tell like my 5 sales jokes, and they would kill better than all the rest of my act, because they're salespeople, So I'm trying to come up with this like funny side of sales, like corporate thing. And man, I'm getting close. I'm getting a lot closer.
Well, if you ever need some help with that, that's kind of my wheelhouse, is putting those speeches together. I can at least throw some ideas against the wall.
You just signed yourself up for some consultant work.
Let's do it. Well, man, I couldn't be happier that you had some time today to hang out and catch up, and I really look forward to the next time I can catch your act live here in Nashville. So make sure you let me know, and I'll let everybody else know. Oh,
you bet, buddy. You bet, man. Yeah, it's you were one of the guys that sort of encouraged me to stay in this thing. I just kind of got in, and you were a few years ahead of me, and I remember I didn't know what I was doing. I had a lot of fun working with you over the years, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I think it was Dayton, Ohio. We did a New Year's Eve weekend there or something. That was a blast, and many other times and places. But you always had new material, always had great stuff. So it's cool to see you keep doing it.
It's funny that you said you didn't have anything funny about those horse days, because I remember like some great stories about that, man.
Yeah, I guess there's enough time and distance they can't sue me for anything now, so I should start getting into that. I'm going to knock over somebody else's basketball goal.
Yeah, what about the poor night watchman, man? I wonder what he's doing, man.
Yeah, that's where I should take it, is figure out what the lives that I destroyed. What are those people doing now? Cool, buddy. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Good talking to you, Rick.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening in as me and Greg kind of caught up. He's done a lot. He's a good guy, as you can tell just by the stories he shares and the insight. And again, he's going to be promoted all month long on SiriusXM with his new CD called Fish Sandwich. You want to be paying attention when you hear Greg, and that's the same guy you just listened to. Very funny dude. And I'm excited. He's actually going to be coming to Nashville pretty soon. We're going to work on his corporate program and all about sales, and that's going to be fun and extra good time to check up and catch up with each other. So very cool. Thanks again for listening, for supporting the podcast, for spreading the word. If you can do any of that, it always helps out. Let other comics know about it. I think every episode there's a few tidbits that I pick up, and if I'm picking them up after 25 years, I'm sure a lot of the newer comics out there can pick up a few tips now that will shave a few years, if not months or days, or perhaps even minutes off of their comedy development. And that's what it's all about here, getting bigger, better, and more bookable. That's going to do it for this week. Thanks again for listening. Guys out there, travel safe and stay funny.
Thanks for listening to the School of Laughs podcast. If you'd like to hear more School of Laughs podcasts, you can find them on iTunes and Stitcher.com. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. For information on upcoming live and online classes, visit schooloflaughs.com. Until next time, stay tuned, stay focused, and stay funny.